So today I want to talk about whether to slow down or reassess. This can be a kind of complicated issue when we're talking about personal growth and development because there is generally a time to slow down and um, recover. But on the flip side, sometimes we slow down when you don't have to, and while we can actually process and learn while in action. So I'm going to go over a few ideas and provide some suggestions and some assessment tools to help you make that decision. When we're looking at slowing down or reassessing, the first thing I want you to do is look at the tools that you're using and ask if they're working. And this is again an assessment. Right. So it doesn't mean we need to stop what we're doing, but the question again is, can we look at the tools that we're using and are they doing the job? For me, a perfect example is when it's time to get new shoes. Or decision to get new shoes. So I've been running with the same pair of shoes for a while now. And suddenly I started to develop strain in my Achilles tendon and starting to turn into a little bit of plantar fasciitis. And I was able to start looking at those tools in that moment. I was like, what is happening? It's easier when it's something physical because I was able to look at the shoe. And basically what it is the way I've worn the shoe down, now it's making my foot kind of roll more than I want. It's causing additional strain. But in addition, the heel is kind of rigid. And that's also rubbing on my Achilles tendon, causing issues. So the tool that I was using that initially was fine, now that I'm starting to do it a little more aggressively and I've added some other things into my workout that are causing additional strain along my ankle and my calves in that area, now I've started to develop this problem. So I was able to reassess, and it was easier to reassess in process. I didn't stop running, and that's really the choice, right? Do I need to stop running and let this heal, or is there something I can do that allows me to continue to go? For me, there's a couple things. One, I recognize that that tool is no longer working the way it should, so I want to do something about that. The second aspect is I can use something called kinesiology tape, KT tape, and it's an elastic tape. I wrap my foot just a little bit and run it up, so that now I have additional support for my foot, and that's the other aspect. Maybe the tools you're using, are sufficient, but maybe they're not. All right, because the reason we're slowing down into recess is because something isn't quite working the way we want to. Now again, these shoes, they worked for a while. They were working for a good long while. It's only once I started upping my game. So it's not that the tool was bad inherently, but it was no longer able to keep up with the growth. And sometimes we find that in a lot of different areas of our lives. The tools and the strategies and the way we've been functioning reach a point where they're no longer sufficient for what we're trying to do. And we need something new. For me, like if I only had one client, do I need a robust CRM management system? No, I probably don't. It's easy enough to track. But at some point with growth and expansion, do you need to? Yeah, you're probably going to want something. You're going to need to systemize as your environment adds complications, as things grow and as it expands, as you want to do more and more. Maybe you're not much of a planner, but at some point, that not planning is going to cause you more stress and hold you back. And being able to do those assessments and see what's working with the tools you have is a key part of it. You know, do you need a new tool, or and do you need a completely new tool, or do you just need something to add on to it? Right? And again, that's not just physical, and not just software. You know. But let's say it's not the tools. All the tools seem to be working. What else could it be? Well, look at your mindset. Where's your mindset at? You know, are you stressed out? And if you really pay attention, is your body, is your brain, are you saying, I need a break? Are things not working because some part of your body is working against you now because there's a need that you're not addressing? And that's another big factor. You know, if there's a need to slow down, if there's a need to back off, then we need to listen to that. On the other hand, it might just be a reset. Maybe you've been doing something for a while. It was easy at first, but now it's become common. It's a system, but it's just not as exciting. It's just not thrilling, and you haven't connected with why it's fun to do anymore. You know, and you're not focusing on, I did this because it's so cool. Like, I love learning this new thing, and it's so much fun. But now that you've learned this new thing, all of a sudden, not as exciting. Now it feels more like work, even if you're not consciously acknowledging it on a daily basis. So maybe that mindset needs to shift. Maybe the mindset around what you're doing has shifted, and you need to realign it or restructure it, become a little more intentional. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to stop, because maybe it's not a burnout thing. Maybe it's just, it's not working because I'm thinking about it in a way that's not supportive. Right? But building off that again, it comes back to how we're using everything. Right? How things are working together in a more synergistic kind of way. What is supporting you, what isn't? And are you able to assess that? You know, what do you need? Do you need to slow down in terms of, maybe you decided to do so much that actually what's happening is you are just overwhelming. Quality is going down, your quality of thought, your quality of sleep, your enjoyment of life, because you've added so many things to it. And while you've developed the capacity to do the work, it's actually sabotaging your satisfaction. In that case, it might be time to slow down. Right? Again, you're still reassessing, and maybe you can't reassess in the moment, and that's another reason to slow down. You're doing so many things and everything's working, but you need to back off to get that focus. You're so in it that you can't recognize why something isn't working. But obviously you feel something isn't working, or you can see something isn't working, right? Like the product, whatever it is, the outcome that you're going for, why it was working at some point, all of a sudden it's dropping off. Why? Sometimes you can do that, like for me with my shoes. You can do that in process as you're going through. Sometimes it's a matter of getting more present rather than slowing down. Like being more mindful of, how is this working? I do this a lot. I'm a very physical person, so I definitely put this into my physical world, but also in my mindset. If I notice I'm more grumpy, or I'm not feeling myself so much, I ask why. And I try to start going through my day with more presence. What am I not acknowledging? What am I experiencing in these moments and these time frames? You know, or with the shoes, I'm noticing how my foot is feeling in the process. I'm noticing how my foot is rubbing, or how this particular shoe may be contributing to my discomfort or aggravating the situation rather than supporting it. You know, and I don't have to slow down. I just ordered new shoes, right? And I'm wearing another pair of shoes in the meantime, but it's like, okay, now I have a solution. And the KT tape helps. So in the meantime, I have my KT tape. It's literally a temporary Band-Aid, but it means I don't have to slow down. I don't have to stop running, but I can still heal and I can still continue to grow. It was just a matter of assessing, finding that temporary fix that is going to turn into my long-term fix, which is the shoes I'll be getting in a couple days. And then there is another component I really want to address, and that's, can you assess? Can you effectively do this? And if you can't, there's a reasonable amount of time that I think we should spend on anything. If we find ourselves ruminating on a solution to a problem we've identified for an extended period of time, and you kind of know it when you feel like you've gone through all your ideas and you're like, and when you're genuinely giving yourself the space to think and saying, what else can I do? And the answer is, I don't freaking know. Because that happens. I think it's important to recognize the moment you get to that point where you have no idea what to do, is it time to get help? The answer would be yes. So that's the other component. At what point do you get help? And we all have our lines, so that may be a little individual to you, how long you're willing to give yourself to solve the problem. But we can be a bit stubborn about it, and that's another aspect I want to address. It's great. We may have the ability to solve our problem, but not the perspective or the language to get our brains to recall and to see that solution. Asking for help isn't necessarily a matter of not having the answer inside of us, as much as not having the right language to draw it out. So that's the third part. Right? Step one, look at your tools. Do you have the right tools in place? Is it recoverable in process? If you don't have the right tools in place, because it's possible, again, with my shoes. If I didn't have another solution, if that KT tape wasn't helping, then maybe I did need to slow down. Or maybe the damage was extensive enough that what I actually need is to stop and literally slow down. And then once I get my new shoes, then I can run again, but I may have to take a couple days off. But if I didn't know, because shoes are easy, right? Well, they're not easy, I'll be honest. There's a time where I sold shoes. There's a lot that goes into them. Anyway, if you can't figure out, or even that, right? Like, so let's look at shoes. Maybe I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what to look for. I'm lucky I know what shoes work for me. I was able to get them. But maybe you don't, right? That's a simple reason to get help. Same reason that you go to a store and you ask. You can wander around a store for a while, but at some point you say, excuse me, can you tell me where this is? Why do you do that? Because you don't want to waste a ton of your time. But we do that all the time in personal development and growth and scaling. All the time. Because we want to believe that we have the answer. And even if we do, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. We can't know what we don't know. We don't know if there's a tool out there that's going to help us. Okay. So that's the other aspect. Now, once you get everything, this is the final component. So you've already figured out, are my tools working? Do I need new tools? If it's not the tools, what is going on in my head that's preventing what I'm looking for? Okay. If it's neither of those in terms of an answer you can give yourself, do you need to get help? All right, great. So now we figured out the tools we needed. We figured out the answer to that question. We figured out where we need to go with that, whether it's slow down or reassess. We'll reassess in a moment. It's not the mindset. We've now got that on lock. Great. We actually got some help because we felt like we were honest with ourselves and we said, you know, we're actually wasting our time on this. And we're only slowing down because we don't have the answer when we could keep going if we just asked for some help. Final part always comes back to you. It's test and reassess, right? You have everything you think you need. You put it into work. Now it's time to test it. And does it work? And that's really, I can't say all there is to it, right? Because at this point, I believe it's my longest video so far. But that's really what we're looking at. You know, do you have what you need? Can you evaluate it in process, or do you need to back off for perspective? What is the root cause? Is it a tool, a system, or a mindset? Can you find the answer on your own, or would you benefit? Would you speed up the process by getting help from the outside? And once you have what you believe is a solution, be open to considering that it's new and you're testing it, and it's okay if it doesn't work out, because this is a test in the reset or reassess. And if it doesn't, go through the steps again. I do want to make one note. Obviously, I am a coach. I'm here to help. It's what I do for a job. I help you find those answers within yourselves, right? However, what I don't want you to do, it's the same with the current conversations about ChatGPT. It's important that you do the work and look to see if you do have the answer and then get help, right? It's important that you never surrender your sense of agency and your belief in being able to find a solution without even trying. Make sure that anytime you seek help, you've done some groundwork first. For one, you help yourself. You invest in the belief that you might be able to find the solution, you acknowledge it beforehand. And also, when you do go for help, it can really narrow things down a lot. Like if you've already done some of the work, then when you do get help in some area, you know, again, just like the grocery store, sure, they could just give you the answer. But also, if it's your local grocery store, maybe you walk the aisles, maybe you learn the store, you learn the layout. And then now you know, like when you have time. Now if you don't have time, you need an answer, do what you need to do. It's all about understanding yourself, your goals, and your timelines. But I never want you to outsource your belief in your ability to solve your own problems. So make sure you do enough work to recognize that you're making a conscious choice to get help to support you in your growth, rather than surrendering under the belief that you're not capable of developing the answer. Alright guys, until next time.